Welcome into First and Goal, the newest podcast presented by the Clutch Gene. My name is Kyle Layton. His name is Connor Hogan. He's got 4 questions to answer this episode. We got 4 things to talk about. Let's get right into things. So First and Goal. Not too long after our podcast last week where we talked about who would win the QB duels, I think both of us agreed that Cam Newton would probably win the Patriots quarterback duel, but Mac Jones would come in at some point in the season. Boy, were we wrong. Just like all-time wrong. Literally the next day, the Patriots go with Mac Jones. They cut Cam Newton, get him out of there. Kind of a shock move. I didn't really expect that they would cut him. Connor, what do you think? Was it the right move for the Patriots to cut Cam Newton and go with Mac Jones?
First of all, yeah. One, that they, if anything, I mean, I think, like you said, we both agreed that Cam would be the starter, but Mac would probably come in. The other idea was that, Mac gets it and they keep Cam on as a veteran quarterback to kind of teach him the way, they always kept Brian Hoyer around no matter how bad Brian Hoyer was. They just go up, straight up, cut Cam, keep Brian Hoyer back there, which, can't complain about because he's been in that system off and on for, I think, almost a decade now. So he obviously knows the playbook. He's going to do it, but just blatantly just throwing Cam to the street is just, brutal, to be honest. I don't think anyone saw that coming at all.
No.
And that's not just like an outsider looking in thing. I don't think any insiders knew about it. I think that was a very much, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft decision to just be like, all right, we go out, we spend $150 million in the offseason, we revamp the entire offense. And maybe it's the idea, if we're going to revamp the entire offense, we need a new quarterback too. And that was the decision on that. But, Mac only looked better in every preseason game he played. And I don't think anyone's going to deny that. That's just how it went.
Right.
Cam, in the grand scheme of things, didn't play well in the preseason. I know he didn't see a lot of playing time, but the numbers he put up when he played were not good. They were pretty miserable, to be totally honest. So I think it's just the, shock and awe factor still at this point. But I guess we're going to see what happens because rebuilt offense, quarterback very similar to the Tom Brady style that we saw dominate for 20 years. So, maybe we're just seeing the system come through again. As much as everyone's going to hate to see it, we might just be reliving the dynasty of old, but we won't know until we see him play.
So, yeah, we'll get to the Cam part of this in a minute. I want to focus more on the Patriots side of things, where this decision really came down to you decide either to move past the Brady era or try to extend the Brady era. And I think if you keep Cam, you're just trying to extend on the success that you got from the Brady era. 20 years of dominance. And you're just trying to say, like, if we can make playoffs, anything can happen. We can make a push, Whereas if you go with Mac Jones, I feel like you're kind of bringing in a new era of football in New England. And if Mac Jones is good, then they'll have removed themselves from that dynasty era and a new age will come. Whereas going with Cam, you are only ever going to get the well-imagined, Tom sort of thing. I think it was a progressive decision by the Patriots. I think Belichick was signaling the start of a rebuild and a new era, like I said, while trying to remain competitive because, like you said, they dumped a lot of money in that offense. And I don't think that the Patriots were ever a team that was going to be like, let's just suck for a couple of years and build a team. Belichick was never going to do that. He's too late in his career. They want to win another ring as soon as possible. So I think this is their way of rebuilding while also remaining competitive and being a free agent destination purely on the basis that you're competitive. That's how they were able to get those players for really low deals. Chris Hogan a couple years ago when no one else wanted him. Who else comes to mind? They spent a little money for Stephon Gilmore, but they've gotten a bunch of other players in there that came there to win, and they got them on deals because they were like, there was a promise of building your career past the point that it's already at. And when you get the QB, it makes everything else easier. So I think that the Pats clearly think that they have the guy, because I don't think you make this decision if you don't think that Mac Jones is that guy moving forward. I think it makes the whole rebuild idea a lot more difficult if you're sitting there like, well, yeah, this is great and all, but we don't have the QB to guide everything. I think once you get the quarterback, you can make decisions like this with a lot more confidence, because you have that guy. You have the toughest position in football to find. Is a starting caliber quarterback.
Yeah, I also think the fact that they have a pre-built offensive line, and like you said, New England's notorious for going out and finding guys that people don't think have value left and turning them into, not all pro guys, not maybe
unless you're Randy Moss.
Guys.
Randy Moss also came there and found new life. I don't think they drafted Wes Welker. They found him. You know,
they found him, and Wes Welker was a role guy in Miami, and it's
he'll get his jersey retired by
next man up, right? It is, yeah. So it's that next man up mentality, right? Like if you can't cut it anymore, or they think they have a better piece, you're done. You're out. You're not. And we've seen that as a double-edged sword in New England, where, like you said, guys will come and play because of that prestige that they have there. But also you have guys who've come in and then left and been like, and won rings, then left and just talked, a ton of trash. Right? Chris Long did it. Darrelle Revis did it. Notoriously said how horrible it was to play in New England after winning. Yeah, Wes Welker did the same thing. And so it's very, what is the situation? Cam comes out on social media and says, hey, man, business is business. Thank you for the opportunity. And I
don't think Cam... I don't think Cam was ever going to be that guy to complain. I think Cam is genuinely a good guy and says all the right things. And, Cam got a lot of flack earlier in his career, and I think it was kind of unwarranted. I think he's one of those guys that does say the right thing, very good in front of the camera and everything like that. But what you said about people coming in, the biggest part about the Brady era in New England was that people bought in, because Tom Brady was the best player in the field at all times, and he bought into it. So if Tom freaking Brady, future first ballot Hall of Famer, greatest quarterback the game's ever seen, is buying into the system, yeah, you better believe you got to buy into the system. What are you, crazy? So I think that this is, like I said, this is a reset. This is getting Mac in there. I'm not saying Mac's going to be Brady level, but even if Mac is very good and he buys in, you'll still have players buy in. You just need someone in there that buys into the system and can execute when needed, and you're looking at another 15 years of maybe not the same kind of dominance, but at least being competitive, making the playoffs, winning a couple of rounds, maybe getting to a Super Bowl. We're not going to see the 10 Super Bowls again, 9 Super Bowls, whatever it was, but getting to a Super Bowl, getting to 2 Super Bowls. Patriots fans are going to have to adjust here, because believe it or not, the rest of the league doesn't go to the Super Bowl every other year, and you guys are going to have to figure out how to navigate life without that. All right. I'm wearing a Cowboys jersey now. Do you know how long it's been? I wasn't even born.
Neither of us were born the last time the Cowboys went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, and everyone needs to get used to that. If you're a generalized New England sports fan, until the Tom Brady era started, no one was winning. The Celtics hadn't won since, the 80s. The Bruins hadn't won in forever. The Red Sox hadn't won. The curse, right? Everyone knows about that, right? So it was very, that Tom Brady era in all of New England sports comes in, and you're just looking at a totally different community. But yeah, it's the buy-in. Like, if they don't have buy-in up there, if, Hunter Henry, Johnny Smith, Nelson, Kendrick Bourne, if those guys aren't buying in to the system up there, it's just going to be another season like last year, where there's no communication, there's no, fluidity to the offense, and you have the defense, which is now Stephon Gilmore-less for the first at least 6 games of the season. I think JC Jackson will do a great job filling that role. But yeah, you have to have that buy-in on both sides of the ball, or it's just going to be people trashing it again and being like, oh, it's a terrible place to play. They're too hard, whatever, this, that. So yeah, if Mac's that guy who can come in and be like, hey, this is my system now. I want to be here. I believe in what's going on. You're going to see it, and it's going to, push everyone forward.
Yeah. So let's get to the Cam side of things here. I saw a tweet earlier today that I'm actually going to read to you right now. It's a stat comparison between Tom Brady in 2019, his last year as a starter in New England, and Cam Newton in 2020, so last season. So completion percentage, Brady had about a 61%, Cam Newton 66%. Yards per attempt, Brady was 6.6 yards per attempt, Cam Newton was 7.2 yards per attempt. On target throw percentage, Brady was 73%, Cam Newton was about 74.5%. Bad throw percentage, Brady was about 21%, Cam was about 20%. And points per drive, Tom Brady was 1.9 points per drive, and Cam Newton was 2.1 points per drive. So I saw that, and I was like, wow, Cam Newton did a lot better on the Patriots than I remember him doing. But I felt like I had to dive in a little bit here. Going into probably some more telling stats, I'm a big fan of the basic stats: touchdowns, interceptions, yards, that sort of thing, completion percentage, which was listed there, and wins. I know wins are not a quarterback stat. I wholeheartedly believe in that, but if you have a good quarterback, it can make a big difference in wins. Sometimes they're the reason for the wins, other times they're not, and sometimes they're the reason for the losses, other times they're not. So Cam Newton was 7-8 in 15 games as a starter in New England. He missed one game because of COVID very early on. I think it was week 4 or 5. He had 20 total touchdowns, 8 of those passing, 12 of those rushing, 16 total turnovers, 10 interceptions, 6 fumbles, and 3,249 total yards. So, I mean, not an awful season, but definitely not an exceptional season by any means. Tom Brady in his last year as the Pats quarterback was 12-4 as a starter. And granted, they did have a lot of, what's that called? People that didn't play last year, opt-outs. On the defensive side, but still, I think that shows the effectiveness of Tom Brady versus Cam Newton at this stage in their careers. Tom Brady had 27 total touchdowns, 24 passing, 3 rushing, 12 total turnovers, 8 interceptions, 4 fumbles, and 4,091 total yards, vast majority of those passing. So it tells a slightly different story, but it also says that Cam Newton, I feel like, got a lot of shit for his performance last year. 8 passing touchdowns, not great. I think Dak Prescott had more than him going into the final week of the season, and Dak Prescott hadn't played since week 3 or 4. But I feel like it also says Cam Newton was not as bad as we remember him being. I feel like that a lot of people remember him being. So what do you think is the next step for Cam?
I think there's a good chance Cam ends up as a backup somewhere. I think the big thing that I've been seeing is that the Cowboys were in talks with Cam to bring him in. I think it'd be a solid idea. Then Dak obviously comes out and says, I'm fine. I'm ready to go. I'm playing week 1. Whatever happens there, happens there. We also talked during the week about the Redskins having a backup for, Fitzpatrick.
Football team.
The football team. And then, I mean, maybe even the Texans, if Deshaun Watson ends up not playing, I think that's a good step for Cam as well. He definitely ends up somewhere. I think Cam, from what he showed last season, is still too talented to just be washed out of the league and forgotten about. And I think someone's got to, it's not taking a chance on Cam. It's just making sure that wherever he gets brought into is a system where if he needs to, he will be able to step in. Because, I mean, Cam didn't get paid anything for his time in New England. He signed a veteran's minimum. I think it was like $1 million. And I think his extension this year was around the same, and he gets a $2 million signing bonus. but I just don't think there's any way that he just gets washed out. Someone within the next week or two will pick up Cam, and he will either be a very solid backup for a team, or with a lot of teams who have a question mark at quarterback still going into week 1 of the season, he could step in as a week 2 or 3 starter for a team that might be without a quarterback going into the season.
Yeah, we, like you said, we had talked, and I like the football team. I think that anywhere where Cam has an opportunity to compete for the job, not necessarily get the starting job, but have at least a competition for it, is a good place for him to go. Because, I mean, look, in the end, passing stats still matter for a quarterback, as good as you are on the ground. And Cam, passing-wise, was not good last year. Like, there's no real question about that, you know? But he proved that he can still be an effective football player, in the sense of he's still a threat with his legs. If he can, even complete some of his throws, on third down especially was where he struggled last year, where you'd see a lot of the 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 defenses can do whatever they want because they know he can't throw very far. Same issue that Drew Brees had. I mean, I'm not comparing Drew Brees and Cam Newton, but Drew Brees had the same issue where 3rd and 15, you didn't have to cover very deep because 15 yards was about the max he could throw it at the end of his career. So I think that anywhere where he can compete, the football team, the Jets wouldn't be a bad idea, just to give Zach Wilson some competition. The Eagles, I don't think they're really bought into Jalen Hurts over there, as much as I like Jalen Hurts. But the Lions, I don't think they're bought into Jared Goff for sure. So anywhere where he can compete. As far as the Cowboys go, I think it would be... I like the idea, but I also, I don't know. If Dak gets hurt, I'd rather just lose. Like, if Dak gets hurt again, I'd rather just lose like how we did last year than try and tread water and make the playoffs. That's just my opinion. Because the Cowboys, I think, have an offense that's ready to compete. Defense always has remained a question. But I think their offense has enough to compete. And if Dak is gone, that offense is no longer ready to compete, and we're kind of just sitting there. And I'd rather just send out, Cooper Rush or something and lose a couple games and maybe get a good draft pick, get a good lineman because our line's not getting any younger, and just go that route. Then tread water with Cam, finish 9-8, and get a middle round pick. So one thing that I saw that I was talking to, shout out to Zach, who I do the other podcast with, he had mentioned something about Cam Newton in a Taysom Hill role. I can't remember if it was him or Mikey. Mentioned something about Cam in a Taysom Hill role. If I'm Cam, all due respect to Taysom Hill, I am not letting anybody play me in that sort of role. I mean, I know he's not the player he once was, but he's appeared in a Super Bowl, former MVP, starting quarterback, star quarterback of a team for years. I'm not being relegated to a Taysom Hill role, where he just comes in and runs at the goal line, and that sort of thing. I wouldn't do that. I mean, as Cam, you got to have a little self-respect and be like, look, I know I'm not what I used to be, but I'm not that, Taysom Hill has a perfectly fine career in the NFL. He's carved himself out a nice little role. But Taysom Hill's role is for Taysom Hill because he can't play quarterback anywhere else. There's a reason Jameis won the job over him. So that's just my opinions on the whole Cam thing. I think backup is the best role.
Taysom knew that coming out of college, that he wasn't going to be a quarterback, and that was very apparent when he went to New Orleans. That wasn't even a question as to what he was going to be. He was going to be that guy. I mean, going back to college, that was Justin Fields' role behind Jake Fromm at Georgia.
Yeah.
Right? And look at where, look where Jake Fromm is. Yeah. And look where Justin Fields is.
Yeah.
So that can go either way. But I mean, Taysom Hill had no intent. I mean, there was never even a thought in New Orleans that Taysom Hill was going to, be the next thing. until New Orleans fans decided to get on the Taysom Hill bandwagon at the end of last season.
Yeah, and Sean
like,
Payton handed out a $100 million contract to him. You know.
Yeah, and we're not going to see that. No. Cam has, one, way too much self-respect, and two, too much talent to ever be thrown into that role.
Yeah, I like I said, former MVP, BCS national championship, won one overall. I'm not letting someone put me in a Taysom Hill role. I'd retire before I let that happen. You know, just call it quits. Go into announcing. Do you think announcing is an option for Cam? Some kind of commenter.
I think he has the personality for it. I think it will be with college football, not the NFL. I think Cam's personality lends himself much more to college football than it does to the pros. I think just that, when Cam comes in somewhere, it is a big presence. I mean, with his outfits alone, it's just, a different thing. And I think the action-packedness of college football lends itself much more to Cam than the pros do, if we're talking about him commentating games or being an analyst somewhere.
I agree with that. I also think that, if Cam were to say he retires today, I think he would have so many offers, and from college and pro. I think that he could have any offer that he wants. And I think that there will be a lot of pro offers with a lot of money tied to him. Because, Cam, by all accounts, has a great personality, handsome guy, seems to know his stuff. I think that he could be in line for a big payday should it come to that. All right, let's move on. 2nd and goal. I saw this report this week, and I feel like we had to talk about it because it was just kind of it seemed like a whole lot of nothing, but if you actually look at it, it seems like a lot. So Falcons owner Arthur Blank says the relationship with Julio Jones soured after failed contract talks. Connor, did the Falcons make the right move in letting Julio Jones walk?
Yes. As much as everyone in Atlanta loved Julio, I don't think Julio, one, wanted to be there anymore, or two, that offense was any longer centered around Julio. Calvin Ridley comes in. Calvin Ridley is really good. An electric receiver down there in Atlanta. I don't think anyone is going to argue that at all. I think Julio, at the end of his career in Atlanta, was more of a diversion to get Calvin Ridley open than Calvin Ridley was just obviously incredible, did tons of stuff on his own. Julio was no longer the centerpiece of that offense. Calvin Ridley led that offense, receiving, catching the ball, and Julio just didn't really have a spot there anymore. And I think the best thing for the Falcons to do was to move on from Julio. As just incredible as Julio was, they found a new number one in Calvin Ridley, and they weren't going to, that was their decision. And I think Julio will do better with the Titans than what would have happened if he would have stayed in Atlanta, whether they had worked something out or not. I just don't think he was going to be happy there. And I don't think that offense would have run. I don't think that offense is going to run great as is, but I think it would have been much more muddled with Julio still in Atlanta.
Yeah. Here's my question to you is, do you think that the Falcons are rebuilding?
Yes, offensively. I think the defense is pretty solid. They got some really good pieces. Offensively, Matt Ryan is aging pretty quickly. Obviously, they bring Calvin Ridley in. The offensive line is not terrible, but it's not anything special. They're just kind of coasting right now, I think is the best way to put it, because they have certain pieces, right? They have Calvin Ridley, they get Hayden Hurst, who becomes an incredible tight end down there. They go out, they get Kyle Pitts, who is going to be, from what I've heard, is supposed to be the greatest thing to ever come out of college football. I don't know how it's going to work. Hasn't even played an actual, season snap yet. He's played preseason, but not a lot. So yeah, I mean, offensively, I think they're in a pretty solid rebuild. They're going out, they're getting weapons, but obviously they have a lot of work to do, and I think it's just the beginning here.
Yeah, so I struggle with that question of if they're rebuilding or not, because I feel like did they trade him or did they release him? I believe they traded him. No,
If they traded him, it wasn't. I don't think it was for much. I
let me
think it was
just
kind
check
of
that
like
real quick. But losing Julio, I feel like was an effort, like a step towards rebuild. Hold on, I'm looking at it here. He was traded along with a 6th-round selection in the 2023 NFL Draft to the Titans for their 2nd-round 2022 pick and their 4th-round selection in the 2023 draft. So basically, him and a 6th for a 2nd and a 4th. It's a step towards rebuild, right? Because Julio, as good as he's still a fantastic receiver, is not in his prime. He's not prime Julio anymore. He's not even close. Last season, he only played 9 games. He was dealing with hamstring issues. He still got 771 yards and 3 touchdowns in those 9 games. That's about 85 yards per game. So that's still decent. I mean, you'd still take that on any team in the NFL, right? But the thing is, they don't commit to the rebuild. It's really good that we talk about the Patriots first and then them, because I feel like they're two sides of the same coin. Since that Super Bowl against the Patriots, famous 28-3. Sorry, Falcons fans. Don't mean to bring it up again, but since that day, I feel like the Falcons have not been the same team and they haven't been close. And I was just looking at it right before you got done your point, where I thought the Falcons had been kind of knocking on the door a little bit the couple years before. I thought they had made a conference championship before. They hadn't. That was really a one-off year. They had been good in years before that, but they hadn't really, been that close. But since that day, the Patriots and the Falcons have gone two completely different routes. The Patriots won that game. Do they go to another Super Bowl after that? Yes. Yeah, they face the Rams. And they lose Tom Brady. They kind of have a little bit of a down year last year, but like we were just talking about them, they seem to be on the up and up. They seem to have made the decisions to put them in place to be competitors for years to come. The Falcons are completely different. The Falcons since then have only regressed. Their defense was historically bad last year, and you're right, they have added some nice pieces in the offseason, but that doesn't leave them that their defense is historically bad. They fired their coach, and they have kind of been 1 foot in, 1 foot out, where you look at the Falcons and the Patriots and think they're doing the same thing, right? Where it's like the Patriots are stocking up to move forward being competitive. So they still have a high bill, but they've got the pieces in play where you look at them and be like, I'm still confident that this team can compete in a couple of years. The Falcons aren't doing that. Like I said, they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They have I believe it's the 6th worst cap situation in the NFL. They're paying Matt Ryan $30 million per year, which is the 9th highest paid quarterback in the league. And I like Matt Ryan, but I'm not paying Matt Ryan $30 million a year if I'm not competing. And I like Matt Ryan. I think he's a good quarterback. The only teams worse cap situation than the Falcons are the Buccaneers, reigning Super Bowl champs. The Rams seem to be chips all in on Matt Stafford to compete for another Super Bowl. The Bears have a championship defense. They just haven't been able to get the quarterback right in years. The Titans, another really good team, always in the playoff contention. I think what were they in the AFC Championship game last year? So they're competitors. And the Giants. Every team in their range has championship aspirations or at least championship pieces outside of the Giants. Giants are a mess. And the Falcons are sitting there kind of floating, not really having anything. I had mentioned in the other pod that the Falcons are in denial of their rebuild, where they basically need to rebuild, but don't want to rebuild because they still have Matt Ryan. Calvin Ridley's a great receiver. They had an entire offense of first-round picks last year. They're in denial of their rebuild, but it really needs to happen. And I just think they're kind of floating dead in the water. I think they're in limbo. I don't know what you think of that.
No, I think that's spot on. I don't think you could have described that situation better in Atlanta. I mean, like you said, Matt Ryan is perennially a great quarterback, not worth 30 million if you're not one winning the NFC South or at least contending to win the NFC South, or two making playoff pushes. I mean, they're just kind of like you said, they're floating there. They're not, it's like they want to move forward but aren't getting enough pieces to do so. Right? They now have a tight end duo and a single receiver. What's after that? You have, I think, Matt Ryan's in his mid-30s now. He's not getting any younger. That offensive line, I think, outside of Alex Mack, I don't even know if Alex Mack is still there. But
I think he is. I can check on that.
I mean, and there's your key for the offensive line, but you really just don't have anything that's being like, you're not looking at the Falcons and being like, okay, even with these pieces, I like how they look. It's just, it's not.
Alex Mack now plays for the 49ers, so they don't even have him.
Yeah. So there you go. There's no pieces there that are being like, okay, they have a complete offense. They have a complete defense. There's star pieces, but there's nothing tying it together.
I can't remember a situation or a team that really compares to where the Falcons are at right now, because they're in a precarious situation. They are on the verge. They're teetering right now between figuring it out, becoming competitive again, or at least having a bright future where you can be like, in 3 years, they will be competitive. And completely flatlining and becoming, like I said, I can't think of another team like this. I want to say the Browns, but the Browns were talentless for years. That was their issue. I want to say the Texans, but the Texans are talentless. That's outside of Deshaun Watson. That's why they're in the position they're in. They trade their best player. I just can't think of a situation where a team that has talent. I don't think anyone's saying Deion Jones isn't talented. No one's saying Calvin Ridley isn't talented. Kyle Pitts, by all accounts, is super talented, and is just going to be caught in limbo.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe this is prime Philip Rivers Chargers.
Yes. But even then, talent, they made the playoffs.
Had a solid defense. They made the playoffs, but they were just constantly in this limbo. And at that point, the AFC West wasn't good.
Right.
I mean, Denver until Peyton Manning was not a threat. Kansas City with Alex Smith was fun to watch, but wasn't doing anything. And the Raiders were horrible.
Yeah.
And you just kept thinking, okay, Philip Rivers has these pieces. They have, Sean Marion, you have that great defense. And you were just like, okay, what are you going to do? Let's see it. Come on, make that push. Get to a conference championship. Let's see where you go. And they could never do it. And they had the pieces, and it just kind of got so stagnant that nothing ever happened. And I think that's where the Falcons are now. They have pieces to do what they need to, but there's no tying it together. It's just.
Another one to compare it to, and this one kind of hits close to home for me, but basically the Falcons are in danger of becoming Cowboys last year every year. You have the talent, but you just have nothing keeping it together, and they're on threat of doing that. Our fix is that our quarterback is coming back. Their fix is that they need to completely reset as an organization, and they're not doing it. Here's a fun fact for you. Arthur Blank is one of the founders of the Home Depot. Learned that when I applied to them last year and worked there for 1 day and then quit. My final thing on this, do you think that the Falcons do any better than third in their division this year? Like, do we see them getting any more than 5 or 6 wins? Because I don't. And 5 or 6 wins is only because it's a 17-game season now. They were 4-12 last year. I really don't see them winning more than 5 or 6 games.
No, and I mean, as much as everyone's hyped on Kyle Pitts, I don't think he does a ton. I think he puts up great numbers. I think he's going to look really good on paper. I don't think that offense does anything. And that defense, even with the pieces they have, didn't add enough or do enough to stop. You know, they're going to get blown out by the Bucs. They'll have a chance against New Orleans with whatever is going on down there, just because they always do. But no, I really don't think they do. I mean, obviously, who they beat out? Carolina, right? That would be.
I
who
think
they
that
beat
was
out.
the only team. No, wait, they finished last in their division last year. So this year, do we think they have a chance of beating out Carolina? I don't think so. Carolina's getting Christian McCaffrey back. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, we're going to talk about him later in the show. So,
Right.
yeah, no, I don't think they do any better.
Kyle Pitts, I feel like that doesn't get enough credit for being a really weird pick, taking a tight end 4th overall. I mean, we don't have to get super into it, but just think of some of the great tight ends, like George Kittle. Still was. I don't think he was even taken in the first round, was he?
No, they are assuming that Kyle Pitts will be a faster, more athletic Travis Kelce, right? Travis Kelce in Kansas City is used a lot more as a wide receiver than he is on the line as a tight end. I think everyone knows Travis Kelce's blocking is not what you want in a tight end. He's much more used split out wide, finding the zones. I think that's what Kyle Pitts is supposed to be. They have Hayden Hurst, who is a good receiving tight end, but will block. I don't think they use Kyle Pitts at all for blocking. I mean, he's a tall guy, but I don't think he's over 250.
No chance. He's pretty thin for a tight end.
He's going to be essentially what the Bills wanted Kelvin Benjamin to be. Right? And obviously bad comparison because, Kyle Pitts is wildly more
I get
athletic,
what you're saying.
But they want him to be a wide receiver with the size of a tight end. It's essentially what Randy Moss was, but he's plays tight end instead of wide receiver. Just a guy they want to go bully people with.
I don't know. I just feel like what makes Travis Kelce valuable is, one, he's really freaking good, but two, he has a quarterback that can get the ball to him that makes him valuable. Like Travis Kelce's biggest compliment is that he's Patrick Mahomes' safety blanket. But the only reason he's Patrick Mahomes' safety blanket is because Patrick Mahomes goes through his reads and can get the ball to Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
and Travis Kelce's always open. So I don't know. It's just a weird pick, 4 overall for a tight end. We talk about running backs not going, in the top 20.
It's
really
just weird.
He'll come up later, though. So 3rd and goal. Which second-year QB is most likely to make the MVP jump? So we've seen this before. Patrick Mahomes, year 2 MVP. Lamar Jackson, year 2 MVP. Last year was a little bit of a break. Aaron Rodgers won it. But your second-year QBs include Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, and Jalen Hurts. And also shout out to Ben DiNucci, who would also be a second-year QB in there. So what second-year QB is most likely, maybe not necessarily to win MVP, but have that sort of season, making that jump?
If Joe Burrow hadn't gotten hurt last year, I would have told you with 100% certainty going into the season that would have been Joe Burrow. I really, really, really like Justin Herbert. I loved watching him in college at Oregon. He was so much fun to watch. With that team they have with the Chargers, I think he has the best shot of doing it. I think Joe Burrow, with the offense the Bengals now have, regardless of the fact that he's going to get sacked 100 times this season, I think he's still going to put up good numbers. Jordan Love,
not going to see the field.
I mean, I'll see the field probably next season. There's no way Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay. I really, really like Jalen Hurts. I don't know where all the Jalen Hurts hate comes from, especially out of Philadelphia. I think he's done a great job. I loved watching Jalen Hurts both at Alabama and Oklahoma. They just don't have a team. You have a bunch of guys who were supposed to be stud wide receivers coming out of college. None of them have done anything in the pros. They got Rager back, but even then, that was only flashes of what he was supposed to be.
He was TCU, right? I think is where he went.
Yeah, and he was notorious. They've been notorious in the past few seasons for drafting wide receivers. And obviously, hindsight's 2020. they take JJ Arcega-Whiteside before DK goes off the board, I think. And there's like they're just notoriously bad at drafting. Really like Jalen Hurts, and Tua's just not. I didn't like Tua in college. I still don't like Tua all that much now, just because I've never really liked a full 4-year or 3-year Alabama quarterback. We'll see if Mac Jones is different. He only gets 1 year starting. But those guys with long tenures at Alabama notoriously do not do well in the pros because they're surrounded. And we've talked about this off of the podcast. They're surrounded by perfection at Alabama. They then go to a team that is usually horrendous as a number 1 pick
Right.
and fail. They're not used to playing with people who aren't 5-star, recruits. I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. I think he has an incredible chance. He's a great quarterback, and I'm very excited to watch the Chargers this year.
Yeah, so Justin Herbert right now has the best odds at plus 2,200 to win MVP. I think that puts him like in the top 10 overall on odds to win MVP. Tua is plus 5,000. Joe Burrow is plus 6,600. Jordan Love has not put odds out for him. And Jalen Hurts is plus 8,000. On the topic of Jalen Hurts real quick, I am like you. I've never really liked Alabama QBs. On the old show I did on the radio station here at Linden a couple years ago, I had a thing for bashing A.J. McCarron because this was around the time when people thought A.J. McCarron should play over Andy Dalton at his last couple of years in Cincinnati. And I never understood that, and I would just bash him. I didn't like Jalen Hurts in college, and I was proven very wrong by that because I didn't think he'd be good in the pros. I thought he was okay in college. I didn't think he'd be good in the pros. I didn't think he could throw well enough to be good in the pros. He's kind of proven me wrong. I mean, from what we saw last year, we saw flashes of it. He's a real playmaker, and he has some value. Herbert is probably the most likely candidate to have this sort of jump just based on pure what they have for talent. But I don't think he has the team around him to make that sort of jump. You saw with Patrick Mahomes, when he made his jump, Kansas City was still a great team. Lamar Jackson, when he made his jump, the Ravens are still a great team. Like, you need a good team around you to make that sort of jump. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. He doesn't really have the team around him. I don't really like Philadelphia's new coach, and it's not just because I'm a Cowboys fan. I just, period, don't like him. I love Joe Burrow. Freaking coolest white guy in America, but he doesn't have the team around him either. And they decide to go with Jamar Chase, who has a case of the drop season, the preseason. I mean, granted, their other option was Penei Sewell, who apparently has not been very good in the preseason either. But, you saw that surgery mark Joe Burrow had on his knee there, and I'd be a little concerned about him getting knocked around a little bit. I personally like Tua. I think Tua's the play here. Like I said, I don't think Herbert has the team. I don't think Hurts has the team. I don't think Burrow has the team. Jordan Love's not going to see the field. Ben DiNucci got cut, unfortunately, so he's out of the running. I think that Tua has a good team around him in order to win that. The Dolphins are really talented. The Dolphins probably should have made the playoffs last year. Would they go 10-6 and somehow missed? They have a lot of talent, and I'll get into this on when we talk about the end of year awards. But I really think Tua's the play to have that sort of year where he just takes a big jump. I don't think he'll win MVP, but I think he'll make a big jump in the sense of we'll be talking about Tua a little differently than we did last year. Last year we were talking about him as if maybe they should have stuck with Ryan Fitzpatrick. This year I think we'll be looking at Tua as a serious threat when he's got a year under that system. Last year was a weird year with COVID, and I think he was just coming off that injury too, so it was tough. First time on the field, you're getting barreled down by Aaron Donald or whoever else. I think he's in position to make that push, and there's a lot of talk coming out of Dolphins camp, hyping up to a big time that he's ready to take that next step forward. But yeah, so I think Tua is the play.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see it. Like I said, I've never been a Tua fan, and mostly coming from Alabama. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does blow everyone away. Maybe the Dolphins. I mean, I've seen Dolphins as dark horses to win the AFC East, beating out the Bills, which I don't see as being plausible at all.
No.
maybe they do it. Yeah, I mean, that offense with the receivers he has, I think it would be hard for him not to put up good numbers. But I guess we'll see what happens. It's Miami. They can hype people up as much as they want, unless they win. It's going to be Miami that we've always seen, where it's like flashes of brilliance, and then they just kind of fail.
But you talked about bad teams that Alabama quarterbacks go to, and it kind of sucks them because they're on 5-star recruits. Is Miami not the best bad team possible for Tua to go to? Like, it seems like, as far as ideal fits with bad teams go, Miami's probably the most talented out of them.
I mean, putting it that way, yeah. I mean, Miami has always had a team that has those, like I said, kind of those like flares of, wow, where has this been? I mean, you watch Devontae Parker play, and you're like, why isn't he a top 10 receiver in the NFL?
Right.
Like,
why did people consider him a bust a couple of years ago?
Yeah, well, he's never had anyone to throw to him, right?
Right.
I mean, they bring in Jalen Waddle as a first-round pick. They go get Will Fuller, like we talked about last week, will be good for 5 to 6 games, and then won't play for the rest of the season because he'll be hurt.
Preston Williams, I think they also have
Preston
him.
Williams.
He's decent. PJ Williams? It might be PJ Williams.
I think the tight end they have down there is scarily good. He's fast. He's got great hands. He's a great blocker. Yeah, no, you're right.
Miles Gaskins out of the backfield, very good.
Miami was the best worst team he could have gone to, and possibly be successful with.
I'm not saying Miami's full of 5-star recruits, but 4-star, maybe
3.5. What are we talking?
Yeah, better than the Texans. He could have gone there. I think we talked about this last week, but not to get too into it because it's a little off topic. But if those rumors about Miami trading for Deshaun Watson, I'm not touching Deshaun Watson with a 10-foot pole if I'm Miami. You might, granted, people still doubt Tua, but you might have something there. I'd rather stick with that than, bet the mortgage on Deshaun Watson ever playing a down of football ever again.
Yeah, you might as well play the Santa or the Grinch every time Deshaun Watson walks into a room at this point.
All right. 4th and goal. Last topic of the day. We're going to predict some end-of-year awards. So we're going to do MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year. MVP odds. As of right now, this is the top 5. Patrick Mahomes, plus 600. Aaron Rodgers, plus 1,100. Josh Allen plus 1,400, Tom Brady plus 1,400, Dak Prescott plus 1,600. And then I also put some non-QBs because the top freaking 20 of them are all QBs because that's who's most likely to win the award. But non-QBs, Derrick Henry is the best odds at plus 5,000. Christian McCaffrey is plus 6,600, and Dalvin Cook is plus 8,000. All running backs because obviously a wide receiver is never going to get it because you'd give it to their quarterback at that point. So who do you think is going to win MVP this year? And if it's not one of the, it can be one of those top 5 guys, or it can't. It's, who do you think is going to win?
I have a hard time saying it's not going to be Patrick Mahomes. I think even with the incredible year Aaron Rodgers put up, Patrick Mahomes, that Kansas City offense is so hard to bet against, no matter what it is. I think he has the best shot at doing it. I think if we're looking at people that might sneak in there, if the Bills make a very deep run, whether it's the conference championship or the Super Bowl, I think Josh Allen has a pretty good shot. And I think I'd really like the MVP to be looked at more with how a person leads a team and what their value to the team is, right? Because we look at it and it's like, oh, they threw for X amount of yards and X amount of touchdowns. That guy's the greatest player in the NFL, whatever. I think what I would like to see the MVP changed into is the player that actually brings the most value to a team and leads a team to somewhere they haven't been before, or gets them to a point where it's like, okay, these guys need to be feared now. They're not just, a contender anymore. these are guys who go at it. And I think if I had it my way, if the Bills do push as far as I think they can push to, I would love to see Josh Allen win an MVP.
Yeah, I have been a long time proponent of that same exact thing, of the MVP being going to the most valuable player. This happens a lot in basketball, where it's like if MVP really went by definition, LeBron James would have won every single MVP from like 2008 to 2019. You know, it's more, the MVP is more of a story award than it is of based on value. I'd say this doesn't happen as often in the NFL because like Aaron Rodgers provided a ton of value, you know. And I get what you're saying with Josh Allen. He brought them to a certain point. I still think Aaron Rodgers is a more valuable player. Patrick Mahomes is a favorite for a reason. He's the most valuable player of valuable players. If any, you know, if the entire NFL is rebuilding, putting everybody into a draft, Patrick Mahomes is 1-1 every single time, you know. I like Lamar Jackson to repeat as MVP this year. I feel like he won't win it because it's a story thing, right? So Lamar Jackson won it a couple of years ago and then lost in the playoffs. So I feel like he's not going to have a chance to win MVP again unless we see some serious playoff success. And I know he won the playoff game last year, but I'm talking real playoff, like they make it to the conference championship success. As unfair as that is, I feel like that's what happens. But I like Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson has a serious case to be considered with Mahomes in that like MVP of MVP, like valuable player ranges, where the entire Ravens offense doesn't run unless Lamar Jackson is there. He's probably as about irreplaceable as it comes as a quarterback. Because like if you're talking about just pure replacements, I know this would never be a situation, but you can replace Mahomes with Rodgers, right? And they could do the same thing. Name me a quarterback that you can throw into the Ravens offense that can do the same thing as Lamar. Kyler Murray is the closest thing.
No. Yeah, you have Kyler Murray, and if you can't get Kyler, you get Jalen Hurts, and that's a stretch, to say the least.
Right. So I feel like he's as irreplaceable as they come, and I think that the Ravens, especially if the Ravens are guaranteed to be good. They're good every year. They put together a 14-3, 15-2 season. You know, really dominate this year. And Lamar Jackson is the Lamar Jackson we see all the time. I feel like there could be a serious case for MVP for Lamar. Let's move on to Rookie of the Year. So the Rookie of the Year odds right now. Neither of us said a non-quarterback, by the way, with the MVP thing. I think it's just unrealistic. I don't think a non-quarterback has a chance. Derrick Henry ran for over 2,000 yards last year and didn't sniff it, you know. Rookie of the Year. No. So right now, obviously, Trevor Lawrence plus 400, 1-1 overall pick, quarterback Jesus. He's obviously going to be up there in odds. Here's something interesting. Mac Jones has the second best odds to win Rookie of the Year. He is also plus 400, tied with Trevor Lawrence. So I wonder what they see there. Justin Fields is plus 600, obviously, if he gets the chance to play in Chicago. Trey Lance is plus 650, and Zach Wilson is plus 800. So basically the 5 quarterbacks chosen in this past draft. Interesting to me that Trey Lance has higher odds than Zach Wilson, despite the fact that Trey Lance might not even see the field this year. So it's just interesting to me. Who do you think is going to win Rookie of the Year?
I don't think I'm going to pick any of those quarterbacks, actually. Depending on the year Micah Parsons has as a linebacker for the Cowboys and what he's going to bring to that defense.
Pander pick.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Micah Parsons actually has a solid shot at Rookie of the Year playing in that defense. I think they're going to find out how fast he is, dying. How good he is. No. I think Micah Parsons has a solid shot. I know a lot of people outside of those quarterbacks are going to pick Kyle Pitts just because of how hyped he is. I'd love to see Micah Parsons win a Rookie of the Year in Dallas as part of that defense.
Yeah, I would too, Connor, but it's not really super realistic. I think Micah Parsons will be good. I really liked when they drafted him this past year, even though I really wanted Patrick Surtain. Um, Sorry, I just had a moment where I drowned on my own water I was drinking, so I'm still recovering. Um, I like Micah Parsons, but I really struggle to figure out how a defensive player wins Rookie of the Year. They have to put together an all-time season, especially when you have a guy like Trevor Lawrence in the same draft, who Trevor Lawrence could put up a mediocre year and it's probably going to win it. You know, it's just one of those things where he's destined for it. I like Najee Harris. He's plus 1,000 right now. And he's getting a lot of hype in Pittsburgh. He could see a ton of touches because he's the only running back they have there. And I mean, if you're Pittsburgh, are you really relying on Ben Roethlisberger? Probably not. You know, at this stage of his career.
Or, I mean, who's still in there? Benny Snell? Like,
yeah.
I mean, his little fidget spinner mouth guard, like, I'm not scared of that guy running at me. I mean, probably right. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is gonna probably walk away with it just because, I mean, touchdown Jesus, right? Like,
right.
As hard as it is to say no, it's probably gonna be him. The Trey Lance in there is just kind of weird. I mean, I'm sure he'll probably see 8 games this season as a
depending
starter,
on how the Niners do.
Depending on how the Niners do. But I'd like to see a non-quarterback win it because I think these defensive running back, wide receiver rookies who do a great job on the teams they're on deserve a little more hype than a guy who you expected to be good coming out of college and was a top 10 pick. I don't know. It's, you know, like we said, all of these awards are kind of like storied awards, so they're going to go the guy who's hyped at it the most,
right?
Usually.
Trevor Lawrence has been destined to win Rookie of the Year since he got into college, you know?
Yeah, I mean, people were saying that when he, you know, verbally committed to Clemson in like 7th grade. So it's not like, you know.
I think Najee Harris could get this. I think Saquon won Rookie of the Year not too long ago, right? He won it over Baker.
Yep.
And also, this goes back to my Tua pick for a potential big jump this year. Jalen Waddle is an interesting choice if Tua makes that leap, because chances are he's going to be throwing a lot to Jalen Waddle. Operates in the slot, short intermediate game, which is much more of an area where Tua operates, whereas Devontae Parker is a deep threat. And if Tua makes that jump, I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Waddle is over 1,000 yards receiving this year if Tua makes that leap. So I'd be excited to see that. I don't know what his odds are. I didn't write him down, but I think he's more of a longer shot. Defensive Player of the Year odds. Aaron Donald obviously is the favorite, plus 500, tied with Myles Garrett, plus 500. T.J. Watt plus 800, Chase Young plus 850, Joey Bosa plus 1,000, and I believe Nick Bosa is plus 1,600. Who's winning Defensive Player of the Year?
I mean, it's hard to argue. If Aaron Donald continues to be Aaron Donald, it's almost impossible to bet against that.
Right.
If we're calling back last year, TJ Watt got wildly disrespected.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, my God, absolutely.
Statistically, he was better than Aaron Donald in, I think, almost every category. And just because he wasn't Aaron Donald getting double and triple teamed every single play of every snap of every game, he didn't win. I mean, TJ Watt is right now as good, if not better, than JJ Watt ever was in his career.
I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure about that. I think it's closer than people give him credit for. I understand that he's undersized. He's not as big as JJ was. He's not, you know, this freak of nature. But what he does for Pittsburgh and what he does in general is a lot more credible than people are just like, oh, well, he's on that defense. No, he's a very big part of that defense.
He's a huge part of that defense.
Yeah. And it's one of the only reasons that defense does what it does. I mean, having him come off the edge like that is crazy. And it's very hard because Aaron Donald has played a lot more interior than he has played exterior, and
Yeah, that's what makes Aaron Donald so impressive. Is that he puts up end numbers in the interior
against guards like against centers, guards. Guys who are built just like him, and like I said, no, like Aaron Donald is just in a class of his own interiorly on a defensive line. It is terrifying to go up against him. You could have the best secondary in the NFL and a linebacking core, and I'm still terrified of what Aaron Donald is going to do to me on the line of scrimmage. And that's just what it is. You don't, it's not like you don't see that a lot. You don't look at a guy on the defensive line and be like, if I don't game plan specifically for him, he's going to ruin my day. Right?
That's how JJ Watt was when in his prime, where you had to do that. That's why I push back on the TJ Watt being as good. But TJ Watt, like you said, is super disrespected. I'm just saying, Aaron Donald now and JJ Watt, like JJ Watt back then, simply being on the Texans was guaranteeing the Texans at least 6 wins, like right off the bat, just because of what he
did. But they also they started playing JJ out wide after his first, I think, 2 injuries. They're like, okay, we got to get him out of the trenches.
Yeah, so they played him as end.
And I think the big thing is that, I mean, like we're talking about, I mean, Aaron Donald is Aaron Donald. Like, you just can't, you can't go like, you know what? We're going to, put a tackle or, we're not going to help with the running back. We're not going to do anything. Hey, you guard that we drafted in the 4th round last year, you get to go one-on-one with Aaron Donald all day. Guarantee you, if that ever happened, Aaron Donald would have 10 sacks in a game.
Yeah.
And it's right. It's not one of those things where it's like, talking about like the Legion of Boom, right? People were like, oh, wow, we have to game plan for a secondary, Sherman, Chancellor, Earl Thomas, like all those guys. There isn't that in the NFL right now, but everyone thinks about Aaron Donald. Yeah. Every single time he steps on the field, it is, what are we going to do about this guy?
Right.
Right. I saw something. What was it? Someone put a thing. It was like when you find out Trey Young and Aaron Donald are the same height, and they have pictures. Right. They're both like 6'1", and you're like, wow, that is it's terrifying.
There's another one where it was talking about Julio earlier in the podcast. Julio Jones and Steve Nash are the same height. So
they're all 6'3", right?
Yeah. I think Myles Garrett is the play here, just because I don't want to pick a favorite with Aaron Donald. Obviously, Aaron Donald's the biggest, shoe-in for Defensive Player of the Year. I think Myles Garrett is the play, especially if the Browns are as good as I think they're going to be. Garrett will be a front runner, and I think we're far enough removed from the Mason Rudolph incident where the voters can finally be like, you know what, I can finally vote for this guy. He wasn't winning it last year, not after what happened with the Mason Rudolph thing. It wasn't going to happen.
And Clowney's up there in Cleveland now too, right? So
Clowney's overrated. I've never really liked Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, Clowney. He had one play in college, and all of a sudden he was a top 10 draft pick. Didn't understand that one at all.
Yeah, not only top 10 draft pick, 1-1 overall.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a big thing. I get it. He's up there. He's going to be opposite the line of Myles Garrett. They're going to have to plan for him. I think it helps Myles Garrett out a lot, having another guy who is a threat on the other end of the line from him. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Myles Garrett probably does a legitimate shot of winning. I mean, we're far enough away from him literally insulting Mason Rudolph. That was just brutal to watch. But he definitely has a shot. I like Aaron Donald because he's Aaron Donald. But yeah, Myles Garrett will probably sneak up there, and it'll be a very close run for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah. So finally, Offensive Player of the Year odds. So Patrick Mahomes is plus 700. Derrick Henry's plus 700. Christian McCaffrey's plus 1,000. George Kittle's plus 1,200. Dalvin Cook is plus 1,500. This award is kind of where you start to get into, you get the position players mixed in here. This is usually people call this the runner-up MVP award, where it's like the guy that really should have won MVP, but you got to give it to a quarterback, so he gets the Offensive Player of the Year. Who do you think is going to win that?
If Derrick Henry has a year like he has last year, there's no way he doesn't win it. if Christian McCaffrey comes back, also, we should probably talk about Comeback Player of the Year, which should be renamed the Alex Smith Award, in my personal opinion.
Yes.
Offensive Player of the Year will probably go to Derrick Henry if he puts up the same numbers he did last year. Like you said, it's the guy who should have been MVP, but it had to be a quarterback to win it kind of thing. And if Derrick Henry runs for another 2,000 plus yards and has 15 plus touchdowns, there's no way he doesn't win.
Yeah. I hate to pick the favorite. I don't really like to pick favorites, but Derrick Henry is. I mean, if he rushes for 1,800 plus yards again, like, how do you not give it to him? What would it? I mean, he'd have to break Earl Campbell's record in order to win MVP, right? Like, you would have to.
Yeah.
Only thing that could even get him close to it.
You'd have to have, that Earl Campbell, Adrian Pearson type year where it's like, okay, there's no right. You can't say no at that point.
Right.
I mean, obviously the NFL is the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes will throw for 38 touchdowns and 3 picks, and people will be like, oh no, he won.
Right.
Even though Derrick Henry has the greatest year of running backs ever had in the NFL. It is what it is. I think we all know the MVP award is slightly flawed in its, handing out. Offensive Player of the Year is what the MVP should look like when it comes to actual, this is how we decide kind of thing.
Right. And we'll touch on it really quick because you brought it up. I don't have the odds in front of me, but Comeback Player of the Year, who's going to be it in your mind?
It'll probably be Christian McCaffrey. Dak says he's good. If Dak is good, comes back, and is Dak of first 4 games of last season, Dak will probably win it. Saquon's also in there too, I believe, right?
I think it's really a 3-horse race. It's Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, and Dak. I don't think anybody else really has a big.
No, I think whoever wins that is going to be the guy who plays the most games and puts up the best numbers. I think Christian McCaffrey definitely has the best shot at it, just because he steps on the field and it's a game-changing thing.
Yeah. If he comes back and has another 1,000 season, right off the bat, it's his. But if Christian McCaffrey comes back and let's say he runs for, I don't know, what's an average Christian McCaffrey season? 1,200 yards and 700 receiving yards or something like that?
Yeah.
And he plays all 16 games. I still think if Dak plays 14 games and has 4,000 passing yards, I think he still wins it just because it's the quarterback in the NFL, and the NFL always favors quarterbacks. All right. Punched into the end zone. We've reached the end of the episode. Took you all 4 downs, as it always does. So now you can choose to go for the extra point, which would be you'd have a prediction for a game, NFL Week 1, or you can go for 2. And I ask you a trivia question. Right now, you're currently 0 for 2 off of the first episode. I'm going for 2. So it's your choice. The prediction, we're also keeping records. We're also keeping records.
Yeah, let's just go for a prediction. I think it'll go better this time. Hopefully.
Okay. So what's your prediction for NFL Week 1?
It's not a win-loss. It's kind of as much as Matthew Stafford was the linchpin up there in Detroit, and they got rid of him for Jared Goff. I think everyone's already thinking of it, so it's not that great. The Lions wildly miss Matt Stafford, and Jared Goff just completely blows. I don't think he's going to be good all season, but he's just going to be absolutely horrendous in Week 1, and Lions fans are going to be even more upset than they already are with the Lions organization.
Okay, so let's get a number here. They're playing the Niners. What do we classify as absolutely horrendous? Are we talking 2+ picks, one touchdown or less?
Maybe at least 2 picks, and they're going to lose by 20.
20? Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's be honest here. They're playing the Niners, and that Niners offense is really good, no matter who leads it. The Niners defense is really good, and the Lions are horrible on offense and horrible on defense. It's just going to be a bad day for Jared Goff and the Lions.
Okay, so there we go. Our prediction is that Jared Goff is going to suck Week 1. I'll write that down so we can keep track of that. All right. That's the show. If you're interested, the trivia question was, who is the youngest player to win NFL MVP? It is Lamar Jackson at 23 years and 25 days old. that's what we got for the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe to the Clutch Gene, and we will see you guys next week.
Can't fight the temptation when you get the vibration. Won't do you no good. Won't do you no good.